The words hit Sebastian like a slap across the face as the first-class cabin fell silent. What kind of man prances around serving drinks in a skirt and makeup? Gideon snarled, his voice booming over the hum of the engines, unaware that his outburst was being recorded by a passenger 3 rows back. Sebastian stood frozen, tray balanced perfectly in his hands, the small bottle of scotch still outstretched toward the man who had just shattered the professional mask he wore every day at 30,000 feet. At 28, Sebastian had heard worse on red-eye flights from New York to Los Angeles, but never from someone whose face had graced the cover of Forbes 3 months earlier. Gideon Hale, 42, billionaire tech mogul, sat sprawled into a custom Italian leather shoes, kicked off expensive watch glinting under the cabin lights. His sharp, jaw-clenched gray eyes narrowed in disgust, as if Sebastian's mere presence offended the very air he breathed. Sebastian forced a calm smile, the same one he had practiced in the mirror since flight school. "Sir, I'm here to ensure your comfort. If you'd prefer another attendant, I can arrange that immediately." His voice stayed steady, even though his heart hammered against his ribs. Behind him, a few economy passengers craned their necks, the soft click of a phone camera barely audible above the white noise. Gideon laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the curved walls. "Comfort? From a guy who probably cries during rom-coms? Save the act, sweetheart. Some of us built empires, not Instagram feeds." The insult landed like a punch. Sebastian felt the heat rise in his cheeks, but he simply nodded, turned, and walked back down the aisle, head high, shoulders squared. He had dealt with homophobia before, from strangers, from dates, from his own father back in Ohio. This was just another Tuesday at 35,000 feet. What Sebastian didn't know was that the passenger in 5D, a quiet marketing executive named Marcus, had already hit record the moment Gideon raised his voice. The video captured everything: the sneer, the slur, the way Sebastian's hands trembled for half a second before he steadied them. By the time the plane touched down at LAX, the clip was already uploading to X with the caption, "Billionaire bully versus brave flight attendant. Who's really flying high?" Sebastian collected his belongings in the crew lounge, scrolling through messages from his best friend Riley, who lived in West Hollywood. "Dude, you okay? That rich jerk just went viral, and not in a good way." Sebastian sighed, leaning against the locker. He had come out at 19, left his conservative hometown behind, built a life in New York where he could breathe. Yet moments like this reminded him the world still kept score. Gideon, meanwhile, stormed through the terminal security detail, trailing him like shadows. His assistant Lauren texted frantically, "PR is calling every 5 minutes. Stock is dipping. We need damage control." Gideon waved her off, sliding into the back of his waiting Maybach, the leather cool against his skin. He told himself it was nothing, just a bad mood after closing a brutal merger the night before. The kid had looked at him too long, too softly, and something inside Gideon had snapped. He refused to name that something even to himself. Back in his penthouse overlooking the Pacific, he poured 3 fingers of bourbon and stared at the city lights, refusing to check his phone. But the notifications kept coming. By midnight, the video had 2 million views and counting. Sebastian arrived at his small apartment in Silver Lake just after dawn. Riley was already there with coffee and a sympathetic hug. "You handled it like a pro. But babe, this is blowing up. People are calling him out left and right." Sebastian sank onto the couch, exhaustion settling into his bones. He thought about his mother's last voicemail begging him to tone it down for family gatherings, his father's silent disapproval at every holiday. Acceptance had always been conditional. Now a stranger's cruelty had dragged his private pain into the spotlight. He opened his laptop, the video auto-played, Gideon's face twisted in contempt, Sebastian's own composed response suddenly looking heroic to thousands of strangers. Comments flooded in: "That attendant is a king. Fire the billionaire." Sebastian closed the tab, heart racing. He had no idea this was only the beginning of a storm that would force both men to face truths they had buried for years. Across town, Gideon's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Board members, investors, even his younger sister texted variations of, "What the hell, Gideon?" He muted everything, poured another drink, and told himself the kid deserved it for making him feel exposed. But deep down in the quiet hours before sunrise, a crack appeared in the armor he had worn since college. The way Sebastian had met his eyes without flinching stirred something Gideon had spent decades crushing down. He refused to name it. Not yet. Morning light filtered through the blinds of Sebastian's apartment as his phone exploded with notifications. The video had crossed 10 million views overnight. Hashtags Stand With Sebastian and Cancel Gideon Hale trending worldwide. Riley paced the kitchen, scrolling furiously. Babe, you're an icon now. Airlines are issuing statements, flight attendants' unions are rallying. But that billionaire's company just lost a major partnership. Sebastian rubbed his temples, the weight of sudden fame pressing down. He had only wanted to do his job, maybe flirt with the cute pilot on layover, not become a symbol. Yet here he was fielding interview requests from queer media outlets and supportive messages from strangers who shared their own stories of workplace bigotry. It felt validating and terrifying all at once. Gideon's world cracked open at the same moment. His PR team arrived at the penthouse before 8 a.m. Laptops open, damage reports flashing red. Stock down 12%, 3 sponsors pulled out, and the governor's office is distancing itself from your charity gala next month. Lauren slid a tablet across the marble island. The video paused on Gideon's snarling face. He stared at the bourbon from last night, still bitter on his tongue. It was one comment, he muttered, but even he heard the lie. The board had called an emergency meeting demanding he issue a public apology. Gideon Hale did not apologize. Ever. Yet the image of Sebastian's steady gaze haunted him. That flight attendant hadn't fought back, hadn't crumbled. He had simply existed with quiet dignity, and somehow that was more devastating than any insult. Sebastian spent the day at the union office in downtown Los Angeles, giving a statement. I love my job. I love serving people regardless of who they are. No one should be shamed for living authentically. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. He kept his answers measured, but inside, he replayed every family dinner where his father had changed the subject when Sebastian mentioned dating men. His mother still sent birthday cards addressed to our son, with no +1 allowed. The video had ripped open old wounds, and now the world was watching him bleed. Riley drove him home, later stopping for tacos. They ate in silence on the balcony. You're allowed to be angry, Seb. You don't have to be the perfect victim. Sebastian nodded, tears finally slipping free. Anger felt safer than the fear that Gideon's words had echoed his father's. Gideon paced his home office, the city glittering below. His sister called from Chicago, voice tight. Mom saw it. She's mortified. Dad's talking about cutting the trust fund clause again. Their parents still lived in the same Connecticut mansion where Gideon had hidden every boyfriend, every stolen kiss since prep school. He had built an empire to prove he was the man they wanted, strong, ruthless, untouchable. One viral clip threatened to undo 30 years of performance. He finally opened Twitter, the comments slicing deeper than expected. Closeted much? Bet he's terrified someone will notice he's staring at the attendant too long. Gideon slammed the phone down, chest heaving. He wasn't. He couldn't be. Yet the denial tasted like ash. That evening, Sebastian received an unexpected email from Gideon's legal team offering a settlement and a non-disclosure agreement. He laughed, bitterly deleting it. Money couldn't buy back the dignity Gideon had tried to strip away. Instead, Sebastian posted his first public statement on Instagram, a simple photo of his uniform hanging in the closet, caption, "Proud to serve. Proud to be me. The sky belongs to all of us." The likes poured in, but so did the hate from anonymous accounts. He turned off his phone and cried in the shower, letting the water wash away the exhaustion. Across the city, Gideon watched the post on his laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. For the first time in years, he felt the urge to reach out, not to threaten, but to understand why one man's quiet strength had unraveled his entire world. The next morning, the airline offered Sebastian a paid leave and a promotion to senior attendant. He accepted the leave, but the promotion felt hollow. The video had changed everything, and he sensed the real storm was only gathering. 2 weeks later, Sebastian stood on the observation deck at LAX watching planes take off into the endless blue. The leave had given him time to breathe, but the viral fame followed him everywhere. Strangers recognized him in coffee shops, offering hugs or awkward apologies as if they had personally wronged him. Riley dragged him to a rooftop bar in WeHo one Friday night, insisting he needed to reclaim joy. The music pulsed, colorful lights danced across faces, and for the first time in weeks, Sebastian laughed genuinely. Then he saw him, Gideon Hale, sitting alone at the corner table, nursing a drink, eyes locked on Sebastian across the crowd. The billionaire looked different, rumpled shirt sleeves rolled up, shadows under his eyes. No entourage, no armor. Sebastian's stomach twisted, but he didn't run. He walked over, voice steady. Come to finish what you started on the plane. Gideon stood slowly, setting the glass down. I came to apologize. In person. The lawyers wanted a scripted statement, but that's not enough. His voice carried none of the earlier venom, only raw exhaustion. Sebastian studied him, searching for sincerity. Why now? Gideon glanced at the city lights below. Because every time I close my eyes, I see your face. Not angry. Just steady. And it's driving me insane. They talked for hours, moving to a quieter booth. Gideon admitted the merger stress, the board pressure, but Sebastian sensed deeper layers. When Gideon finally said, I've spent my life running from parts of myself I don't understand, Sebastian felt the ground shift beneath him. The turning point arrived when Gideon's phone buzzed with a message from his father demanding he fly home immediately to fix this mess before it ruins the family name. Gideon showed Sebastian the text, voice cracking for the first time. They never knew. About me. About any of it. Sebastian reached across the table, not touching, but close enough. You mocked me because I represent everything you're afraid to be. Gideon didn't deny it. Instead, he asked Sebastian to dinner the next night, no cameras, no agenda. Sebastian agreed, surprising himself. The misunderstanding that had started at 35,000 feet was evolving into something neither man could control. Back in his apartment, Sebastian called his mother, the conversation stilted as always. She had seen the video too. Honey, we just worry about your safety. The familiar disappointment stung, but Sebastian answered honestly. I'm not hiding anymore, Mom. Not from the world and not from myself. Hanging up, he realized the video had forced him to stop performing acceptance and start living it. Meanwhile, Gideon lay awake in his penthouse, replaying the conversation. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel the pull towards Sebastian, the same pull he had buried since his first secret kiss in boarding school. The price was already mounting, sponsors fleeing, board meetings turning hostile, but the weight of hiding felt heavier. The following evening, they met at a small Italian restaurant in Malibu. Candlelight flickered across Gideon's face, softening the sharp lines. They talked about everything and nothing: childhood dreams, failed relationships, the pressure of expectations. When Gideon confessed, I've never said this out loud to anyone, Sebastian felt the connection click into place like a seatbelt locking at takeoff. Outside the restaurant, paparazzi waited, flashes exploding as they left together. The video had started it, but this moment, this choice was rewriting the ending. The tabloids exploded the next morning. Billionaire and flight attendant spark romance after viral showdown. Gideon's legal team scrambled. Sebastian's phone rang nonstop. Yet in the quiet of Gideon's beach house north of Malibu, the chaos felt distant. They spent the weekend talking, walking the shoreline, letting the Pacific wash away years of silence. Sebastian shared stories of Ohio Sundays where his father preached fire and brimstone, while Sebastian hid rainbow stickers in his backpack. Gideon spoke of Connecticut summers spent perfecting the straight sun roll, while his heart ached for the boy next door. Each confession peeled back another layer until both men stood emotionally bare. Riley met Gideon over brunch in Silver Lake, skeptical at first. Heard him, and I'll leak your browser history. But Gideon's genuine laugh and the way he looked at Sebastian like he was the only person in the room won Riley over. The friendship circle expanded cautiously. Sebastian's co-worker friends from the airline threw a small barbecue where Gideon helped flip burgers, awkwardly charming everyone with self-deprecating jokes about his lack of kitchen skills. For the first time, Gideon experienced community without transaction. Yet the backlash intensified. His company lost a government contract, his sister stopped returning calls. The family trust attorney emailed demanding a video apology, disavowing any lifestyle choices. Gideon read it aloud to Sebastian, voice steady, but eyes haunted. I built everything they wanted. Now they want to burn it down because I won't hide anymore. Sebastian faced his own test when his parents flew in unannounced to talk sense. The dinner at a neutral restaurant turned tense, his father refusing to acknowledge Gideon. This phase will pass, son. Think of your future. Sebastian stood his ground, hand finding Gideon's under the table. This isn't a phase, Dad. This is me. And he's part of it. The rejection hurt, but Sebastian walked out, head high, Gideon beside him. In the car, Sebastian whispered, Thank you for seeing me. Gideon kissed his knuckles softly, the first real touch that carried promise. I'm the one who should thank you. You showed me what courage looks like. Misunderstandings still surfaced. A tabloid claimed Gideon had paid Sebastian off, fueling old wounds. Sebastian confronted him, voice shaking, until Gideon produced bank statements proving the opposite. The betrayal of public perception tested them, but they chose honesty. Gideon sacrificed a major deal, choosing instead to fund a scholarship for LGBTQ plus aviation students in Sebastian's name. The gesture made headlines again, but this time positive. Sebastian's union nominated him for an Equality Award. Slowly, the narrative shifted from scandal to redemption. Yet the biggest challenge loomed. Gideon's mother called, crying, begging him to attend the annual family gala in Connecticut for appearances. Sebastian encouraged him to go, offering to fly out together. You don't have to face them alone. Gideon agreed, heart full. The decision marked the beginning of true sacrifice, both men risking everything they had built for the chance at something real. The Connecticut estate gleamed under autumn lights as Gideon's Maybach rolled up the long driveway. Sebastian sat beside him, uniform traded for a tailored suit Riley had helped pick. You look like you belong here, Sebastian teased gently. Gideon squeezed his hand, pulse racing. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers sparkled, conversations hushed when they entered. Gideon's father's face hardened, his mother's smile faltered. Whispers followed them like turbulence. Gideon introduced Sebastian, simply my partner. The word hung in the air, electric. The evening unraveled slowly. Old business associates avoided eye contact, cousins asked invasive questions. Gideon's ex-college girlfriend cornered Sebastian in the garden, voice dripping venom. He'll drop you when the novelty wears off. He always does. The betrayal stung because Sebastian had begun to believe in forever. Later, Gideon found him on the terrace, eyes glistening. She's wrong. I've never felt this before. They kissed under the stars, a moment of pure connection amid the storm. But the real blow came when Gideon's father pulled him aside in the study. End this charade, or the company shares transfer to your cousin. You're embarrassing the family name. Gideon stared at the man who had taught him strength meant silence. Then take them. I choose him. Sebastian overheard the ultimatum from the hallway, heart shattering. He wanted to tell Gideon to choose family, but the word stuck. Instead, he waited in their guest room, packing quietly, prepared to leave if it meant saving Gideon's empire. Gideon walked and saw the suitcase and froze. Don't. Please. The sacrifice became mutual, Sebastian offering to step back, Gideon refusing to let him. They left the gala early, driving through the night back to the airport where Sebastian's crew friends had arranged a private flight home. On the plane, Gideon finally broke down, shoulders shaking as Sebastian held him. I lost everything today. Sebastian whispered. No? You gained yourself. Back in California, the consequences hit hard. Gideon's assets were frozen, pending legal battles. Friends distanced themselves. Sebastian returned to work the airline, now proudly featuring him in diversity campaigns. Their relationship deepened through the hardship, late-night talks, shared groceries, quiet support. Riley's friendship became the anchor, organizing fundraisers, turning the scandal into a movement. Yet doubt crept in when Sebastian's mother sent a letter begging him to come home and fix this. The pressure tested every boundary until one evening Gideon proposed not marriage but a promise. Whatever comes, we face it together. Sebastian said yes, tears falling. The climax built as Gideon's cousin leaked old photos from college, trying to discredit him further. The betrayal from family cut deepest, but Sebastian stood by him through the press conference, where Gideon came out publicly for the first time. I mocked a brave man because I was terrified of being him. Today I stand with him. The room erupted, cameras flashing. In that moment, both men understood growth came from choosing truth over comfort. The press conference aftermath felt like landing after severe turbulence. Gideon's company stock rebounded, surprisingly, investors citing his authenticity as a strength. Sebastian's award ceremony at the Union Hall drew hundreds, flight attendants, pilots, allies cheering as he accepted the plaque. Gideon sat in the front row, eyes shining with pride. Their families remained fractured, but small steps appeared. Gideon's sister, sending a tentative text, his mother calling Sebastian directly to apologize awkwardly. Acceptance wasn't instant, but it was beginning. Months later, they stood together on the same observation deck where Sebastian had once watched planes alone. Gideon proposed properly, this time ring box open under the California sun. Sebastian said yes, laughter mixing with happy tears. The wedding was small, intimate on the Malibu beach, Riley officiating, their chosen family surrounding them. No billion-dollar extravagance, just bare feet in sand, vows spoken with raw honesty. Gideon whispered during their first dance, "You saved me that day on the plane. Not from scandal, but from myself." Sebastian smiled, "We saved each other." Life settled into a new rhythm, Sebastian flying select routes, Gideon rebuilding his empire with inclusive policies. Challenges remained: holidays with partial family support, tabloid rumors, societal stares. Yet every difficulty strengthened them. They mentored young queer professionals, funded shelters, and simply loved openly. The journey that began with cruelty had forged unbreakable bonds of trust and growth. True or false, society's rejection can never permanently silence a love rooted in courage and mutual acceptance.